Dr. Aller. If I was the VP and I was tasked with cutting 100 employees so that we could move into the future and not just produce ketchup bottles anymore, but also bottles for mustard and other goods, whether they're prescription drugs, like you said, or whatever, I would recognize the fact that obviously if we're cutting 100 employees from 175, that things are going to be done more in an automated fashion. And I think the first thing that I know the first thing that I would do is hold a meeting with the entire company if I could. Or at the very least, I would send some type of correspondence through the whole company, letting them know what future change we have in store. And I think one of the first mistakes that leaders make is they try to hide changes and they sugarcoat them. They also make them sound like, well, this change is going to be great for everyone and it doesn't mean that anyone will be losing their job, which, as we know, sometimes it does mean that people will be losing their job. And in this case, 100 people will be losing their job. So that's a very significant number. So I think it's important to be extremely transparent up front with where we're heading, how we're heading there, and who will be with us along the way. Obviously, we're not going to say, well, these 100 employees are going to be getting cut right now. That's something we would need to discuss with our management staff and see where we think certain employees should be cut, and should certain employees be moved into other roles? Would certain employees maybe be better off being promoted into certain areas? So obviously, yes, I think we would have to do something along those lines first. I would then also assemble my management team and discuss amongst them who they think should go and why, and who they think that maybe should be moved into a different role and why. I would also create a team that would help lead the change, but that team would not just be comprised of management staff. That would be anyone who the change will affect from that level upwards or from upwards downwards, whichever way. But I think it's important to have, and I know Johnson had discussed this, you want to have help with leading a change and implementing a change from every level. You don't want it to just be from the top down. And I think it's very important from a leadership perspective, as Johnson actually talked about in the beginning, you need to be extremely focused on being clear to people. You need them to not wonder, am I doing this right? Am I not doing this right? Or, oh, I'm going to do this, but wait, let me go and ask so-and-so to confirm that I'm doing it right. When you're leading a big change, and this would be a very significant change, and even if it's a small change, I think you should always follow a pattern where you are clear and you want people to come to you in the beginning for clarity if they need it. But if you do a really good job from the beginning, odds are maybe they'll know exactly what it is that you want from them. In so far as being clear, you also want to give people, and I know Johnson discussed this, enough autonomy, enough leeway to make a decision. No, should they make a decision that's just off the cuff of their head that has nothing to do with what you actually told them to do? Of course not. But these are people that you trust and people that you believe in. And since they are people that you trust and believe in, you should give them a little bit of their own perspective, give them their own rope to figure out how they want to do something. You know, not everything needs to be a policy and procedure manual. Sometimes giving them an idea of what it is that you want, let them run with it. Odds are they know what to do. They work with these people closer than you do. You know, as a leader, you're more thinking about the huge picture. Some of these people are dealing with these people every single day in the nit and gritty. And they're going to know things that you probably don't know. So I think that that's very, very, very important. I know Johnson talks about you want to step up and then step back, and I agree with that 100%. In the beginning, I think it's very important that you step up and you really be there for these people who are leading the change. They are going to need you. But as like year 2 comes along, when she said you start to back up a little bit, that doesn't mean you just, forget about them. You still need to make sure that they're not only delivering the message, but that everyone is aligned with them and that what you're trying to do is being measured properly. You're meeting goals, you're meeting targets. but you also need to make sure that you're not micromanaging people. People hate that. It's one of the worst things that you can do. I work for a company currently where we're micromanaged, and honestly, I feel like my hands are tied at all times. So I think that's very, very, very important. I also think that in the beginning, when you're going to cut these 100 employees, that you really be there to support the people, the management team, who are going to be the ones actually cutting these people. It is very, very difficult to fire someone. Anyone who says that they enjoy firing people probably shouldn't be in a leadership position or a high managerial position or any managerial position for that matter. Whether you like someone, you don't like them, it's very hard to know that you're taking someone's livelihood away from them, especially in something like this where it's not anyone's fault. It's just the nature of the business, the growth of the business is demanding that these people be let go. So I think it's very important that you be there for those people who are going to be in charge of actually executing this plan. I think once you are narrowed down to the amount of employees that you do want to have or need to have, it's important to have a big company-wide, I don't know if it's a resurgence or a or you try to, I'm looking for the word here, you try to regroup and re-strategize and just re-energize the people that you have. You want everyone to be on the same team. You want everyone to be thinking the same way. This is what we're doing. The past is the past. We've forgotten about it. I had a professor, Dr. Bennett. He was one of the best professors I've ever had, and he always said, if you're not with me, then you're against me. And you got to make sure you have the right people on the bus and the right butts in the right seats. And if you're not on the bus, you got to get off the bus. And I think that that's really wise advice. You need everyone who you decided to keep to be gung-ho for this change. You need them to be willing to do whatever it takes, but I think you also need to reassure them now and give them a sense of safety so that they're not terrified that they're going to be one of those people who is going to be let go. That's already done. And you need to let them know, like you had mentioned actually in one of your videos, and you have t-shirts, like this is what we're all to do. Or you could have a company retreat or a company meeting or whatever it is. But you need something to re-energize your staff and let everybody know this is the direction we're heading in. This is great for all of us. This is why it's great for all of us. I think that's extremely, extremely important. I think once the initial big changes have been orchestrated and starting, and I mean in terms of the firing process, I think it's then to continue to be supportive to your management team and to that team that you set up who will be leading this change. I think it's unbelievably important, it's something Johnson mentioned, to make sure that they have the resources that they need. I know in the company I currently work for, a lot of times they tell us, hey, get this done, but they don't actually give you the resources, whether it's people, IT, tech capability, or the personnel needed or funding needed to actually complete the change. So I'm sorry, I'm holding back a sneeze. I think it's also very important to always remember that you are the face of the change. So you need to project that change the whole time. You don't want to be going out with your employees or meeting them at the coffee stop and saying, oh, well, yeah, you know, this change kind of stinks and maybe we'll go back to the old way. You're not doing that. This is the new way and it is the only way. I think that employees lose faith when they hear management or leaders or really anyone saying, oh, well, you know, maybe we'll change it at some point. You're not going to change it. This is the way we do things now. And I think it's very important to, when you have that strategizing, re-energization, that came out terrible. I'm not even sure if that's even a word. But if you're going to re-energize everyone, you want to make sure you're building a company culture that is supportive of this change and in line with this change. Alignment is huge, and I know Johnson talks about that too. One of the other things I would say is always be available. As a leader, you want to be available for anyone, and anyone should be able to come to you. You should be approachable, you should be honest, and you should always be fair. And I really think taking a bottom-up approach is great when executing change. Like, you as the leader, you may be the one who's thinking, you know, for the future and what we're going to do later. But I think it's very important to always say, hey, you know, all these people are on the front lines. What do they think? odds are they have invaluable information for you that would really, really help you. And it will probably help, facilitate the change. I think it's incredibly important, just to sum up, to effectively communicate, be transparent, be clear. And I think it's also important to be very actively engaged in the beginning of the change. I think that you must always keep that initial momentum that you have in the beginning of the change going throughout. You don't want to lose it at some point, I also think that it's important to really examine, is everyone in the role that they should be in? One of my favorite shows was Undercover Boss. And when you get down in the trenches and you start meeting people, if you take a bottom-up approach, actually, which I'm a huge fan of, a lot of these people who might be in the bottom might actually be the people who should be at the top. So I think when orchestrating change, especially a big change like this, I think that you should be clear, you should be transparent, you should be honest, treat people how you want to be treated. And I think that you just need to be there to support your employees and don't micromanage them. If you trust these people, show them that you trust them. So I think that sums it up for this one. Thanks, Dr. Aller.